The information discussed on Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell is believed to be from reliable sources. However, no responsibility is assumed for inaccuracies. No statement made on this broadcast should be construed as a specific recommendation of a particular investment product. Views expressed are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent those of CBS Radio. Use only as directed.
Smiles, everyone. Smiles. And prepare yourself for...
Show me the money!
Ladies and gentlemen, the radio broadcast experience designed to keep your wallet in top condition. It's Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell.
Talkin' money. Talkin' money. More money, more money, more money.
And now entering the studio, your guru for fiscal fitness, Jeff Tarbell.
Right.
Now I hear you.
You got to hit the button there, dummy.
Welcome back.
Give me 2 weeks off. I'm like already half asleep. How are you? I'm not used to so much time away from the building there. It's throwing me off. I got all kinds of stuff to cover. I'm glad you are here. If you're here, raise your hand. If you're not, wake up. We're going to start coming to people's houses. That's the only way we're going to be able to get people up at 8. That's 9. I got up at 7 today, too. This is my problem. I've had too much prep time in advance. We are back. I am back. You were here a couple weeks ago. So Chris
Feels
is
like
here.
a month ago.
Chris is here flying all his Boston colors. How you doing there, big boy?
Doing good.
Good. So we start every show the same way, with a total risk of being banned from CBS for life, by putting the man behind the glass. And they put him behind glass for a reason. It's double-plated glass, too. You actually could not get through that glass if you had to. Christopher Laud, 30 seconds from the mind of Christopher Laud. What's on your mind? I can only imagine.
Well, everyone saw what the devastation was in Boston on Monday, and the thing that really upset me was as soon as it happened, people started throwing in their own agendas, saying like, oh, it's obviously this group of people, it's obviously this group of people, and what really gets you upset is then the news starts doing the same thing, saying, oh, they got someone in custody. They don't. Oh, they got 2 people in custody. They don't. When police aren't even saying who we're looking for. And I think kind of this Twitter society, Facebook society that we're in, it's better to be fast than accurate. I mean, we still don't, they still haven't talked to this guy. We don't know why he did it. We don't know if it's a group of people he was working with. It was just, he just went crazy and just decided to do this with his brother. I mean, we shouldn't be talking about why this happened before we actually hear from the suspects that actually did it.
Suspect.
The
one left. All right, that's Christopher Laud. You can reach him at CBS Radio if you disagree with anything he says, or everything he says, or nothing he says. But he is wearing his Boston hat today, and I do agree with most of what he said there. We are got to be first to get the information out. I was, what a, if you take just take it on the surface and take the horror of the people that were injured. What a fascinating week, and I use that in quotes, but. Listening to, I don't know, some FBI guy on, I don't know, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. It may have even been Thursday. And he must have said 3 times, hey guys, this isn't an episode of 24. We don't solve the damn thing in an hour. But they came pretty damn close.
It was fast.
You have an event on Monday and it solves on Friday. That's like a mini series.
Monday night, they're saying we have no idea who this is.
Yeah,
what
Friday,
it's doing,
Friday one's dead and the other one's in the hospital. I mean, that is
amazing.
Friggin' amazing. Quite frankly. And I was just, having a little juice this morning and looking at one of the newspapers, and the articles are already coming out now. Do we put in more video cameras around areas, or they talk about London. London has a reputation as the world's surveillance capital. Estimated the number of cameras in the city and the rest of the UK are inexact, but they figure about 500,000 cameras in London and 4 million throughout the country. But the United States has more than that. Overall.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. I mean, but is that good? There are people even now, after we solved a pretty unique incident in a incredibly short period of time by camera, and there are people now saying, well, we still think it's it's a privacy issue. You're breaking your privacy. I say if you ain't breaking the law, we ain't breaking your privacy. I mean,
exactly.
I mean,
what are you worried about?
Yeah, I don't care if someone watches me walk down the street or eat a burger, or I guess it doesn't bother me. But it certainly was an incredible resolution to an incredible week. I mentioned one of the emails I sent out this week. Sorry about that. Mentioned one of the emails I sent out this week, which was, are we as a group or as a society getting used to terrorism? And the reason I say that is that, and I'm talking about, are we getting used to it financially? Normally, if you saw an event like that, you would see a ripple on that day or the next day. You'd see a ripple in the financial world, stocks, bonds, whatever. Something would happen. Usually what happens is people rush to a safety net, so they stop doing normal things and they rush to safety. And safety in the financial world a lot of times is bonds, and so you see you'd see rates kind of drop because people are moving their money over to bonds. Like, oh my God, what does this mean? And then they would slowly filter back out. And if you go back and look, I don't think there was any movement at all. Now maybe it wasn't quote unquote big enough of an event. If you're standing there, it was sure as hell big enough, but maybe it didn't have kind of that shock and awe that 9/11 did. Or I just think that people are getting more used to, this is the world we live in, and they're not going to panic financially every time something happens again. So I thought it was kind of an interesting week from that standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was so much going on already in the stock market with ups and downs and sales and trade-offs. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it either, but definitely there wasn't much of a blip at all for bombings to occur.
Now, I did notice, this is out of out of yesterday's paper. This shocks me. So, unfortunately, there was an equally big story this week in Texas that frankly many more people were killed. They weren't killed by somebody else's can; they were killed by an accident in that fertilizer plant. And this just blows me away. I shouldn't use that word again, but right out of the Wall Street Journal, fertilizer storage risk is often overlooked and not thought of as being a potential problem. How could that possibly be?
Yeah.
I mean, was it 12 years ago the Murrow building was blown up in
Oklahoma City?
Yeah, and hundreds and hundreds of people killed by what? Fertilizer packed in a van.
Yeah, the number I saw this out of USA Today is talking about the amount of explosive material in that Oklahoma City bombing was 4,000 pounds.
Okay.
How many pounds do you think was in the West fertilizer?
It had to have been 10 times that.
Yeah, 54,000 pounds.
I mean, it blew buildings down the road away.
13 times the amount. And we're talking huge, just crazy.
Yeah, and this huge article in the Wall Street, you can look it up. It's Friday the 19th. Huge article goes on and says, man, this is a practice that is not really monitored that well. Now, maybe it's because most of the fertilizer plants are out in the middle of nowhere, and if it blows up, it just blows over a few cows and some weeds. But this one didn't.
There's a middle school, I think, a block away or something.
Yeah, so I don't understand this. I mean, we do, of all the things that we do to protect things. I mean, I am not didn't do well in science, but I mean, if I'm carrying around like a bag of fertilizer in the back from Home Depot, I'm driving like I'm carrying like a newborn baby. Like, don't hit me, please, for the love of God, don't hit me. And I only got like 8 pounds in there. It probably wouldn't even blow the hair off my face. But it was. I mean, I don't know to what level this is. All I know is from some crazy dude put a bunch of fertilizer in a van and blew up a building. So I'm driving around with stuff like it's gold.
Right.
And here they've got if you said 50,000 pounds of it. They blew a hole in the city.
That's the number, 54,000 pounds.
So I don't get that. I don't understand why it is we don't store that stuff more carefully. But it was kind of a lost story in the week, and I feel equally bad for everybody back there.
They show a similarity between one van with 4,000 pounds is the same as 13 and a half vans. Is the difference of amount of fertilizer?
Huh?
4,000 pounds versus 54,000 pounds.
Oh, okay.
One van versus 13 and a half vans.
Okay. Full. Okay. So yeah,
when you're talking about driving nimbly down the street, you're talking about
with my 4 pound bag of fertilizer in there.
That's right.
Well, anyway, it's been quite the interesting week, and I'm glad it's been resolved, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And this isn't a show on bombings and things, but it was hard to. I mean, it's like now I'm thinking back. Did I watch anything else this week? I didn't. It's like it was like a mini series. I mean, each day, like Chris was saying, whether it was any truth in it or not, Chris came out with a story, and John came out with a story, and I came out with a story, and we tried to rush each other around, and Chris's story ended up being partially right. There was a guy that did a bomb, and it was just kind of and built and built and built. But it was a fascinating week, and just I guess there is no perfect crime, because you would think that you could walk through a group, set down a backpack, and leave, and nobody would ever know who you were unless I knew you and saw you do it. And yet,
boom!
Within 72 hours, they had a picture, and within 5 days, it was over. Wow.
Well, when they come out with the pictures too, the amount of calls they had in such a short time was 300,000 per first. I don't know how long, but it was really fast.
Yeah, it was anyway. Sad week, but a good finish, and a very, very high five to all the people that did some phenomenal work there. We have got a load, and I mean a boatload of stuff to cover. A lot of interesting, some financial news, just a lot of little fun stuff we'll cover today too. We're going to give away some River Cats tickets. They are up in season, and so we'll give those out today. The ski season is officially done, and it was a massive disappointment for me. Some of the resorts I guess did okay, but I just thought it was a bummer season. Started out great and ended up with a. It kind of ended out great. If you weren't in California, the season was probably phenomenal. But here locally, we just got squat. Maybe I should be glad because I wasn't pushing water out of my backyard.
20 inches of snow last night in Cormier.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm not going back. The flight is too long, and we'll talk about flights too. I've been doing a little traveling. I've done more traveling in the first quarter of this year than probably I have in my life, quite honestly. And it just was kind of a weird confluence of events. But I'm staying home for a while, and I'm not going anywhere, as I know. But I'll did a little traveling back east. We'll talk about that. Went into the Virgin Islands, which I've never been. Went there for a friend's 50th birthday. We can cover a little bit of that as well. And I don't think I have the Hangtown stuff, but Hangtown's coming up about a month. What's the date today? Today the 20th, 19th, 20th, somewhere in there. It's about a month from now. The Hangtown event will be back, and John and the boys from the Dirt Diggers called me and said, do we want to come out and do a live broadcast again? I said, yes, if you can put us in a place we can hear something ourselves, and they want to give away some T-shirts and some tickets. So they'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks. I could get my hands on those too. So a lot of things to cover. Chris, why don't we take an early first break? Let me get myself situated here, and you got a quiz question there for us?
Yeah, let's see who's awake this morning.
Okay.
I thought this one was just mind-boggling. But anyway, Robinson Cano, actually, he has a new, let's see how we want to say this.
Sports
agent?
agent?
He has a new agent.
Mm-hmm.
And who is that agent?
Robinson Cano, he's the New York Yankees. What position does he play, Chris? Outfield?
Second base.
Second base. Probably the hottest prospect in baseball, and he just signed with a new agency. And a little bit out of the norm. So who's his new agent?
Yes.
I believe his agent was had a little dust up himself recently by being in another country. We'll talk about that. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. You can text us at 441140 if you'd like. I'll give you a ticket to go see the Sacramento River Cats. Any game you want to see. That's the nice part about those tickets. You walk right up, hand it to them, give you the best seat in the house on any game you want to go. We'll be out there Sunday night, right?
We also have some Round Table Pizza.
Some Round Table flatbread, artisan flatbread pizza. So if you're not going to watch some baseball, we'll give you some pizza. This is Talkin' Money. He's John. I'm Jeff, and we're going to be
right back. Jack.
Talkin' money.
Well, alrighty then. We're back to Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell.
Yeah. How you doing? Still got a little bit of lung butter left over from my travels there, so
nice.
Apologize if you get some of that hacking and cracking going on. And we are back. This is Talkin' Money. Jeff Tarbell live. John Fodderell. We are in the studio, and we did have a question before the break, which was Robinson Cano, second baseman, New York Yankees.
Who's his new sports agent?
Got a new agent. He had that, was it Scott Boras, who's kind of like that agent for all the superstars? That was his agent, I think.
Yes, that is correct.
So his new agent is whom?
Jay-Z. Jay-Z.
Jay-Z's not an attorney.
Yes, well, he is running up Rock Nation. Jay-Z, otherwise known as Mr. Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And Robinson Cano is basically going over there, because I think he wants to be represented, obviously, but he's also looking at the future and how can he do something more than swinging a bat, possibly.
Oh, so maybe he figures he can get
maybe a movie, a
TV gig or a movie gig or
music, who knows?
Endorsements. So Jay-Z started Rock Nation, which is, I think they just, in fact, I think I saw another article this week, they just moved that whole entity to another company or back to, maybe it was Universal. So, yeah, interesting. So Jay-Z wants to, and he wants to probably get out of having to produce records strictly and solely anyway. So he was, when he's not traveling to Cuba illegally, allegedly. So another story. I could care less whether he goes to Cuba or not. But anyway, so that was the answer, Jay-Z. We got a winner on the text and on the phone, so we'll give you your choice. I'm sure Chris has got it figured out in there, what you want to do. So I mentioned before the break there that even though this was a week of trauma and dramatic events, it didn't have a big event or a big movement on the market, other than a couple things. And these are my two notes of things that have kind of taken a dive, not necessarily just this week, but overall. Gold and cupcakes.
Cupcakes.
Yes.
I missed that one this week.
You didn't get the cupcake memo?
I missed that one.
Well, we'll start with that then. And this was, of course, I don't know if the boys there at Cupcake Craving, Jake and those guys, and Cupcake Craving does advertising in the show, and I use them every single loan that closes. I send clients or the realtor or both a dozen cupcakes, and they have our logo on them, and they're fun, and it's just kind of a nice way to say thank you, and people like it. I mean, who doesn't like cupcakes? What I didn't know, one of the many things I don't know. Actually, it's easier for me to add up what I do know than what I don't know. But what I didn't know is that cupcakes went public recently, and in 2011, Crumb's Bake Shop, a New York-based chain, debuted on the NASDAQ under the ticker signal CRMB. Its creations, the 4-inch tall with fillings such as vanilla custard, caps of buttercream, costing up to $4.50 a piece. Think about that. Yeah, well, yeah, they're not quite that big. That's the size of your beer. Go down a little bit. Yeah, but they're big. I mean, there's a picture of them. They look pretty darn nice. I think about that, $4.50 for a cupcake. So that must be pretty good. In 2011, the Crumbs came out. The share price, $13 a share, to buy part of the cupcake business. Would you like to take a guess what the cupcake business per share price is today? Anybody? Richard?
$3.
Pretty close. $1.70.
Ouch.
So you can buy one cupcake or 3 shares of the company, either way. So the cupcakes, the darling of the craze back in the early 2000s, is, according to this article, may be coming to a little bit of a halt. I don't believe that. The gourmet cupcake market crash, they call it. So, I see. This is so Crumbs was an actual franchise. So they had started in 2003. They got up to about 67 stores last year, and looks like they might be going back the other direction. So they're not keeping up with. When is that now? Oh yeah, Cupcake Craving. See, I don't think they're going public though. I don't
think so either. But they're darn good.
They're just delivering to the public. So there you go. The if you want to get some of the cupcakes on the stock basis, which is a lot better for your waistline than it is a dozen cupcakes. It
just doesn't taste as good.
It's not as good, right? But it's cheaper. You can get a share. It's cheaper than you can get a cupcake. You can. This might be a good time to do that before they go out of business and you lose your money entirely. The other one that's taken a little bit of a dip is gold. Now let's think about gold for a minute. Remember, or if you recall, in the first segment of the show, I mentioned a little factoid that generally when people get nervous, they run to what they consider to be safe. And bonds are a good idea, or a good example of where some people will run to temporarily, like during the week or during the month or during the quarter. They'll move their money out of stocks and into bonds, or something that's going to sit there and be safe. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of money, but it doesn't lose any money. Well, gold is another one of those things people run to. And the reason gold has had such a run-up, you look back, let me see the price here. Oh, this doesn't go back that far. Yes, it does. So gold peaked out just under $2,000 a troy ounce. That would have been right about the end of 2010. So $2,000 an ounce. It is back down around the 1,400 mark today, mid 1,400s. And so what's happened with gold? Well, if you believe the world is coming to an end and all things are going to hell and the economy is going to collapse, and all those sorts of things, or you just don't believe that there's any good place to put your money that would be safe. And safe meaning not that somebody would necessarily lose it, but it necessarily won't go down in value. People buy gold, to a lesser extent silver, to a lesser extent other things, and they also buy real estate, by the way. So gold has had an incredible run up. $13.60 an ounce is where it finally settled out. So people are now unwinding themselves from gold and probably taking some fairly decent losses. Maybe we won't hear the commercials about the, I don't know, maybe it's only satellite radio you hear all the commercials about gold. Gold's going to triple in the next 12 months. And gold is a risky business because it doesn't pay you anything. If you sit on gold, you don't earn any interest. Most people don't. A lot of people don't even see the gold. They buy gold that's stored somewhere else. Right. They buy gold security. So gold is coming down. So what does that tell you? If people are leaking their way out of gold, and to a lesser extent silver and other things too, where are they moving their money to? Well, I think it tells me there is a slowly but surely building confidence in something else. Something else being, if you look at the stock market, it's been fairly steady and fairly, I wouldn't say maybe beyond steady, it's been fairly good. And other people are looking around going, why is that? I mean, why is the stock market doing so well when the economy is still kind of blah? But anyway, and what else is happening now? What is the other item you can put your money into and sit on it and watch it? And that's real estate. So I think what's happened is people have looked around and said, okay, maybe the real estate decline is over in many areas, not all. But if nothing else, it's probably not going to keep declining. Even if it's not taking off, it's probably settled in many areas. And in our area, it's really moving. So people are moving their money out of things like gold, silver, other commodities, and buying real estate again. One, if you buy a piece of land or a house, you can drive by it every day and take a look at it. You can see it. It generally generates income. Land does, for the most part, does not. But so you're seeing people moving out of there and moving back into the stock market, moving back into things where more normal activities, where they look at the economy and say, I think it's finally making a turn, and I'm not going to keep sitting on gold anymore because gold doesn't do anything. Right. The only way you make money on gold is through appreciation. And when that play is done, and it was done about $2,000 an ounce, you start to see some people lose their confidence and lose their money in gold. Yeah, I mean, almost you see 9% drop on Monday, the sharpest drop in 30 years. So I think that whole commodity side of that, crude oil prices, copper dropping, a lot of different commodities. I can leave all my fillings in my back of my teeth. I was trying to harvest them during the last season, but I'll leave them in there now as well. The other good news that came out this week is the Fed came out and said basically we are going to leave interest rates alone. We're going to basically keep our hands off. They had a lot of hands-on activity. They pushed rates down, put a bunch of money into the economy, did all the things that they probably had to do, and now they're starting to see the ripple effects, the benefits of their work. And they will unwind that. They will start to raise rates back up. They will suck some money back out of the economy. They will do those things, but not yet. And when you look at... So here's two articles that tell you that this is probably not going to happen just yet. Number one, retail sales slipping a little bit. So the economy is slowing back down a little bit. And number two, inflation is basically zero for the items that they watch. So the economy is not overheating. It's kind of slowly settling in, if you will. And inflation isn't going anywhere. So the Fed looks back and says, okay, we don't need to probably pump any more money in. We can't lower rates anymore. They're damn near zero. But we won't talk about raising them up either too. Let's just sit here and see what happens. So I think we're going to settle in now for probably the rest of this year, a relatively mild economy. Rates, John, were, I want to say March-ish. We were getting near 4. Yep. Trickling up there, we started having the 4 discussions. In fact, in some of the HARP programs, they were over 4. And now you're starting to see those settle back down. We're back down in the 3 and 5/8 range again. So that's kind of brought itself back down a little bit too. So everybody got real excited in the first quarter. Oh, we're off, we're taking off. And it kind of, housing market, as far as new homes, obviously we're seeing huge appreciations, still limited inventory. But, definitely a settling. I think that was a good word to use, settling all around. Yeah, we'll take another break and I'll come back to this. This is an interesting, if you look at our area, And I don't follow, a lot of the United States, every single area in the United States. Our area, in terms of appreciation in terms of homes, has been ridiculous. I mean, some areas are just like the boom time appreciation, coming out of that too, which is scaring home buyers. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to miss it again. And I've been saying that. I'm like, you got to get yourself going. And I know a lot of them are trying. They can't find what they want, but it is moving quick. The other thing I always lean to is land. Land prices and land activity is a great indication of what the future holds, because 2 years ago you couldn't spell land. A year ago people could spell land but didn't want to buy it. And now, if you look at this article, this is very interesting. The quarterly supply of empty buildable lots hit a 6.5-year low at the end of 2012. Now, there's a double reason for that. One of them is that builders are snapping lots back up, and so are individuals. They're buying lots back up. And two is, in the last 6 years, nobody has spent a dime developing new lots. So you have a double whammy. You have the lots. What's being sucked up is the lots that have been sitting there for 6 years unbuilt, but nobody spent any money, creating a new investment, and they won't, for a while until these get built up and sold. But land prices up 13% in last year alone for raw buildable lots. So that tells you where people think things are going, and builders are trying to snap them up quick while there's still some reasonable deals. But land is going up, and that is a harbinger of what's coming. And you'll see some changes. So let's take a break. What do you got there?
Oh, let's talk about whatever some people do while they're sitting around, maybe even listening to the show.
Yeah.
They're playing on their phone with apps.
Okay. I've done that.
The question is, what is the top app by share of mobile time spent? So you're sitting there on your phone, playing on an app, and which app has the most time spent using it?
Okay. So it could be a game.
There's some
could be
games.
anything. Yeah. Okay.
Right. A bunch of different things. So what is the top app mobile time spent?
How much? What is the time spent?
23.6%. That's high. Almost 0.25%.
So a quarter of the time that you're on your phone with apps, that's on that one app?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to rethink that a little bit then. 339-1140. 1-800-920-1140. You can text us while you're on your phone on your app there. Get off the whatever app you're using and text us, 44-1140. And we'll send you out to the Sacramento River Cats if you'd like. John's got some round table
artesian pizzas. They're very good.
Yeah, we got those too. Your choice. We'll get them out as soon as possible. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140, or you can text us at 44-1140. We're going to take a quick break. Halfway through the first hour, this is Talkin' Money. I'm Jeff, he's John, and we're going to be
right back, Jack.
Talkin' Money.
And we're back to Talkin' Money. And here's Jeff Tarbell.
Right. How are you doing? Welcome back. We start at 9 o'clock. Be on time. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. If you want to jump in today with something you've been thinking about, we're going to do quite a bit of the real estate mortgage stuff in the second hour. Kind of going through some fun different things here in the first hour. We did have a question before the break, and the question was if you're on your smartphone and your mobile apps, and which app are you using? And one of the apps gets 25% of basically of your usage time.
Right.
And the first one that emailed me was this Candy Crush. I don't know what that is.
Candy Crush Saga. So self-styled sweetest game ever and top U.S. app by revenue. Top U.S. app by revenue. Now I know you play that game all the time.
I don't even know what it is.
I've never heard of it myself. But it is the number one app by revenue.
That wasn't what we asked, though.
We were asking by mobile time spent. 23.6% of the time is on Facebook.
Facebook. Yeah.
So when you're on it, you're looking, searching, writing, doing everything.
It is an app that you. I don't. What's funny is I don't have that many apps on my phone. I've got like one for news updates, sports updates, and like the find a restaurant type stuff. I don't spend a lot of time on the apps, other than if I could look up something quick, other than I do on Facebook, because you find yourself you don't just jump on and jump off. You kind of flick through, see what people are doing, make some comments or whatever. So I could see that. I would have thought it was maybe the bird one, Crazy Birds, or that one is that
Angry Birds,
Crazy Birds, Broke Birds.
You're so up on your gaming.
I got my. So you can see how much time I spent on there. So anyway, the answer was Facebook.
That's right.
For almost a quarter of your time. So we'll get that. We had quite a few people on that on the text line at 441140 had that right. So we'll pick out one of them and send them out whichever they want, some pizza or some baseball. We will be out tomorrow night, Sunday night at the game. Actually, Comstock Mortgage is going to have a little group out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. It's thinking. So I got a couple of obscure things, and we'll get into some real fun. Most everything I do is obscure.
I was going to say, isn't most of it?
Well, I take that back. I have another obscure thing. So imagine that and I've seen, and the reason this caught my eye is I've seen one of these in person. So imagine your doctor is going to replace your kidney. You're going to get a kidney replacement or something like that. And wouldn't it be nice if he could actually practice before he actually fired you open and put the thing in there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the latest craze amongst surgeons before surgery is a replica organ. And what they're doing, I don't know if anybody's ever seen these because they're not out there a lot. Have anybody ever seen a 3D printer? You know what a 3D printer is? Okay, so
I'm shaking my head no.
Okay, a 3D printer, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have seen these. And I have a client that builds, I can't tell you what he builds, but he builds, let's just call them helicopter parts, okay? And so they're building basically like a one-off part. They have to make this thing that goes. Let's just take a headlight that goes into a headlight, a light that goes into a headlight holder. Let's say you're manufacturing this housing for this headlight. Well, you could carve one out of metal and bang it, and get it all together, and then damn, it doesn't fit, and you got to start all over again. And that's how people used to do things. And they would get a mold, and they'd make the mold. Well, now you can, and this is not new, but you can create one on your computer in 3D. So you look at it, you say, okay, that looks like it'll fit. This housing looks like it'll fit. You print it out, so you hit print on this 3D button, and basically it builds it out of, there's different materials, but usually they build them out of plastic, and it looks like a square housing. And so my client said what he would do is at the end of the evening, he'd work on all the directions, he'd hit print, and he'd go home. He'd come back, and this thing would build piece by piece out of plastic or out of whatever material you want a housing. So the next morning he could come in and he could take his light bulb and he'd put it in there and say, yeah, it fits pretty good, or I need to change the dimension of this a little bit too. So he'd play around on the computer and he'd change it, and you'd print. And I use the word print. Everybody thinks of printing, they think of paper. This is actually building a model out of plastic. So look at that. He's holding a kidney in his hand, and that kidney is really is printed, if you will.
That's crazy.
Yeah, manufactured out of a resin material or something like that. And so these doctors now have decided, okay, what we'll do. And they used the example here was that they had a small child who got a donated kidney, and they had to carve it. They had to get it to fit. So it wasn't the kid wasn't the same size. So they built the exact same model of the donated kidney, and when they worked on trimming it and seeing how it's going to fit, and they got all that done before they put it in the kid's body. So it's
that makes sense to me.
Pretty amazing. So if your doctor walks in with what looks like your heart in his hand, you didn't pass away on the table. It's actually a 3D version of your heart, and it's fascinating. And I know that a lot of people that are in the manufacturing world are probably going, duh, Jeff, we've been doing this for like 10 years, right, dude. But I haven't seen somebody walk in with your kidney in their hand and say, we're gonna practice on this before we practice on the real one. Thank you, appreciate that. So that was that's kind of interesting news.
It's like a giant game of operation.
It's exactly like a game of operation. I don't want, and if they don't do it right, do you still get the buzzer? Bzz, bzz. I can never handle the stress of that game too much. I didn't want to get buzzed, man. And my dad always seemed to hook ours up to it like a car battery, so it really gave you a good jolt.
Don't get it wrong.
That's right. I said, I'm not going to be a doctor. I can't stand the burning sensation in my fingers when I don't do it right. This is the one that scares me a little bit. This is probably not news either, but maybe it is. Inspectors found cracks in anchoring rods in the 2.2-mile bridge that California is building, a.k.a. the New Bay Bridge. Has anybody else heard this yet, or is it just me? You heard it yet, Chris? No? So 32 of the 96 anchoring rods used to connect the bridge decks to a supporting pier are already cracked. And by the way, we're not driving on the bridge yet. And this is part of remember before we had some other issues with some quality control issues there. This project, by the way, which started out at a $2.6 billion bridge, is now a $6.4 billion bridge.
Oops.
And it's not done yet. So there have been a lot of challenges, and I'm not sitting here suggesting that building a New Bay Bridge is easy. It isn't. And I guess I'm glad they found the problems now rather than when my car was going across. But they have had a number. The steel anchor rods was another. Has been an issue within days and so on. 288 steel anchor rods along one section of the new span. I guess there was too much hydrogen went into the steel, and it's causing some issues. So fractures, concerns about quality, cost overruns. Welcome to California, or I should say just welcome maybe to bridge building. It's probably just
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, not an easy project, but you got to rely on you got to sub these things out. You got to rely on the fact that your subs know what they're doing, and I'm guessing, I'm not in the bridge building business. I'm guessing when you have an anchoring rod, that sounds like it's an essential section of the bridge. It's not the we didn't get the right color paint. We got the anchoring rod as split in half or fractured, and it's not even being used yet. So don't be shocked if we're using the old bridge just a bit longer. And we're at $9.6 billion on our budget. Not done yet.
A little bit off.
How much is it going to cost to cross that bridge? Do we know the price of that? Does it go up by 3 also?
It's obviously. I mean, how else are we going to pay for it?
I mean, bridges do make money eventually because they go on for so long, assuming the anchoring rods hold.
Assuming you get out of the gates and open it up.
We had a nasty anchoring rod incident. Hey, did you get your tax refund yet? Anybody?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Why the hell are you getting a tax refund?
Because I put a boatload into it.
You gave the government free money.
I did.
Okay. Well,
it wasn't that much.
4.5% of you, 2 million people less this year got a tax refund than before. And the amount of money refunded by April 5th declined 4.5% to, there was $214 billion, with a B, $billion in refunds given this year far.
I didn't get that much.
I didn't even get the point.
I was a little bit off.
I didn't even get the 0.5. I would just take the 0.5. I'm not a greedy person. I'll take the 0.5 of $1 billion and call it a day. Yeah, so that means we the taxpayers, loaned the government interest-free, by the way, and then it had to ask them for it back.
Right.
$214 billion.
It's a great process.
And the total number of tax returns filed was down by 3.4%. So less people filing. Obviously, if you're not working, I think you still have to. I guess if you have zero income, you don't have to file a return. You do have to file a return even if you don't owe. So that's where I think where some of the mistake people are like, well, I don't owe them any money, so I didn't file a return. Because if you don't file a return, they will file one for you by default. But you do need to file a return.
And usually they don't take the deductions out for you.
Right. So they'll just take the information given to them, so your W-2s and those things, and they'll calculate for you what you owe, and they'll do the return for you. So you do want to file even if you don't owe. But quite a few filers down, and quite a little bit less money coming back this year, and primarily because tax revenues were up, which means they were keeping more of your refund money. And tax receipts jumped about 12% to $1.19 trillion in the first 6 months of the government's fiscal year.
Read that again.
Tax receipts in the first 6 months of the fiscal year, $1.19 or almost $1.2 trillion in income the government got in 6 months.
Wow.
And we're not paying our fair share.
Trillion
in 6 months. So you could, I don't know if you can double that or not, because I don't know if the second 6 months generates as much. Probably does not, other than from quarterly pay. It might, because if you're W-2 employee, your employer is sending in your money each month that goes on. So yeah, probably you'd have some year-end income for people that were kind of catching up. So probably the second half's probably not as big as the first, but that's a lot of dough. We should be able to cover our expenses with $1.09 trillion in the first 6 months.
Nah, never happened.
Don't be so greedy, and don't be so ridiculous there, Jeff. So anyway, that was the news on the tax bits, and that rounds out our obscure stuff. That's not true. I got one more.
Imagine that.
One more.
What else you got?
Then we got to take a break. This is the good news, and actually, this is really good news. America's energy boom is a bust for foreign suppliers. That's the headline. U.S. imports of crude oil in millions of barrels per day This is amazing. How many millions of barrels per day do we import? Anybody want to take a guess? Per day. 8.5 million barrels of oil per day we import. And that is down from nearly 10 million barrels just a few years ago. And why is it down? A, we've gotten probably a little more fuel-efficient vehicles. But B, we figured out, up in the Dakotas and some other areas, how to get very difficult oil out of shale and other things too. And the rest of the world is now looking around going, oh, damn. They figured out how to get their own oil out of the ground, and they're not buying from us anymore. And we are causing, like Canada. So Canada right now, the only place Canada exports their oil to is us. They have no other partner to export their oil. And if you've heard all of the articles about the pipelines, they wanted to bring the one, extend the pipeline down to down to Texas. Well, the reason Canada is so panicked that if we don't allow them to bring that big pipeline down into Texas is that that's the only way they can get us their product. So they're diligently working on trying to go west and get out to the toward Alaska so they can get it onto a boat and sell it to somebody else. Canada right now is really experiencing some financial hardships. I'm not going to overblow it, but we cut down 15% of our usage and we're buying less and less from them. They're panicked a little bit. They're like, oh my God, if these guys quit buying oil from us, we're screwed. So we got to figure out how to get it over to the water so we can ship it to somebody else. And the rest of the world's looking around going, if the United States quits importing from us, they'll probably quit defending us and, blah, blah, blah. Now, are we going to stop importing oil from somebody else? No. But if we could significantly get that down, like in half, either through conservation or through our own supply, what would that mean to us?
8.5 billion gallons a day.
Billion barrels.
Barrels.
A day.
Wow.
8.5 million
Where's it all go?
barrels a day. You name it. Everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. You don't. There's you look at this little map here. There are lots of little pipelines that come out of Canada to the United States, which I did not know. I did not know that the Canadian crude market was so big for them and a big supplier for us. I didn't know that, and you see why there's such a push on to try to get those pipelines done. But so Canada is our neighbor to the north is in a little bit of a panic that if we quit sipping on their oil a little bit, they don't know what they're going to do with themselves. So, what do you got there?
Oil, syrup. I was thinking about the syrup when the syrup went
Maple
missing.
syrup.
Remember it went missing?
Oh yeah, that's right. You do remember all the obscure things.
Obscure.
The Canadian maple syrup.
Yes. So we'll stick with obscure.
Okay.
We're going to talk about obesity.
That's
obesity
not obscure.
In select
that is my
countries.
ass. That's not obscure.
Which country at 71% of the people are obese?
And why do you bring this up? Because I had a donut for breakfast.
We did not eat donuts this morning. I didn't eat a donut.
I had one when I was over there.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay, so that was getting up early thing.
Yeah, so
You got way too much time on your hands,
I had to
apparently.
get going there. So why are you bringing up obesity?
Just, we were talking about a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the price of tickets for airlines and the fact that people are starting to pay by the pound.
You pay by the pound for your luggage, right? I mean, they
Right.
weigh your luggage, or if you got a second bag, you got to pay for the pound by the luggage. And I think was telling me that was it your buddy that works at Southwest? Was he the one telling us? We saw him there. Well, maybe Craig was asking him about. Southwest does a calculation for each individual's weight, an average person's weight, which is different in the winter than it is in the summer.
Right.
And because you're wearing more clothes, and B, because we bulk up in the winter. So you don't think about that when you get on a plane. You just figure, okay, the plane can hold 300 people and my 2 bags. But they're actually making a calculation for each
adjusting.
one.
That's what he does all day long.
Is that right?
Adjust, yeah.
Yeah. So
how much fuel, how much mail, how many people, what are the baggage?
Yeah. So it is an interesting concept. So one of the airlines, did you guys talk about that last week or a couple weeks ago?
We did.
One of the airlines is going to charge. Are they doing that now? They're charging by the pound, or they're charging by if you're overweight, or what was?
They are starting to do it on short international hops at 42 cents a pound for each flight. So 42 cents.
So that's the total fare. So that there is no baseline fare. You just pay 42 cents a pound. So if you bring your kid, and your kid weighs 50 pounds, they're on for $25. And if you get on there at 225, you're on there for for $200.
That is correct.
Interesting. So now when you go through that little circular thing that sees if you're carrying any weapons or any drugs or you forgot to take your belt off,
It's weighing you.
it could just weigh your ass too. So you got, you sure you want to wear those shoes? Those look awfully heavy.
Let's have breakfast after we get on the plane.
No kidding. See these boots right here? This cost me like $4 to get these boots on. I'm going in thongs and a thong. Only. I'm going
Bad picture.
Bad picture. I'm going just 2 thongs, thong shoes and thong underwear. I'm saving myself at least $1.50 on this flight right now.
That way you can get another donut.
After you're on the plane. So
right.
the question is, we've totally diverted here. We have to take Chris. What time are we breaking for the top of the hour? Oh, now. Okay. Hey, way to produce there.
So let's get off of this topic.
Give me. Usually there's like, hey, you got a minute or something, Jeff. We'll just keep going. So the question is, I'm sorry, which country?
Yes, which country has the highest obesity rate at 71%? Percentage of population considered obese.
I never even heard of that country. So I'll tell you what.
Let me just tell you, the U.S. is in the top 5.
How much are we percentage?
32%.
So a third of us are obese.
Yes.
And then this country has 70%?
71%.
Wow. And I'll give you a hint. It is not Samoa. Because everybody's going to think Samoa's like number 2 or 3, right?
3.
Number 3, okay. So it's not Samoa. Which country? But it's in that area, I'm guessing. Yeah, 339-1140. 1-800-920-1140. Pass me the donut, Richard. We're going to be right jack back.
Talking money.
And we're back to Talkin' Money. And here's Jeff Tarbell.
Right. Get my groove on.
Groovin'.
So I'll come back to that. We'll do a little real estate, a little mortgage stuff. Lots of activity happening there. I did a little tour for you all. I'm here for your benefit. I'm here to look at things and investigate. Oh, you had the fat. We didn't get an answer to the fat question yet. It wasn't Somalia. It wasn't Pago Pago. Who was the?
Everybody's hung up on it.
I wouldn't know
it either, but Nauru, Nauru. Nauru has 71%. Tonga at 60% of the people consider obese. Samoa at 56%. Followed up by yours truly, United States.
About a third.
Then Australia, the UK, and China at 6%.
So that's the percent of population considered obese. The reason we bring that up is that I don't think the Samoan was it I was going to say Somalia Airlines, but the
Samoa Air
is charging by the pound rather than a base ticket price. So, and I could see that being something that who was the airlines? Was it a couple of airlines were charging you if you didn't fit into your seat, you had to buy the second seat. That's
right.
That's kind of the same thing, but a little different. I'm not sure if that was done from a weight issue or from a passenger comfort for the person sitting next to someone who was maybe taking up a little bit more of their own space. But I could see that becoming, I'm not going to say prevalent, but
a way.
I mean, quite frankly, it's the most honest way to charge. I mean, the plane has to get off the ground, and it takes X amount of energy to do it. And if there's more pounds on there, and they got to spend more fuel to get it, it burns more cost. There's more cost.
So if your 105-pound wife brings 100 pounds of luggage, then you're going to pay for.
Yeah, the same as me.
Yeah, there you
go. me and my thong and my thongs. Either way, maybe it'll encourage some people to lose a few pounds or not. You just like John said, you'll just eat your donuts after you're on the plane. There, we'll be all purging out there in the parking lot. Here's a purge bucket. Come on back before we weigh you. So anyway, that's interesting movements. I did, as I mentioned in the first break, spend a little time. Flew back east. So if you want to get from here to the U.S. Virgin Islands, you cannot. Either get your own private jet or just give up on the. I mean, it's uneasy to get there when you're in the area and people say, "Oh, where are you from?" And you say, "Well, I'm California," and they all go like, "Damn." That is the first natural reaction. Damn. What are you doing here? Your boat broke down coming from somewhere else. So it is just not an easy place to get to. You have to go. I mean, we had to go from here to Denver to Fort Lauderdale to San Juan, Puerto Rico, to St. Thomas, and most people don't stay on St. Thomas, and I can tell you why. Then you got to get on a boat and go wherever you want to go. So it is, and I'm sure there's other ways you can do it, but that was kind of, I mean, that's a long way over. But I have never been to the Virgin Islands, either the BVI's, the British Virgin Islands, or the U.S. Virgin Islands. Everybody there is, Boston, New York, all the
East Coast,
all the ride coasters are over there. But it's very common for them. But it's an interesting place. It's one of those places that when you look at a picture of it, you say, "Oh my God, I got to go there." And one of the beaches, actually the one I saved on my phone screen here, one of the beaches, which is called Megan's Beach, which is in St. Thomas, is by all accounts, every little magazine you look at, probably in the top 5 beaches in the whole world in terms of like places you got to go. And I would agree. I mean, it is just that drop dead gorgeous. But the problem is once you go 150 yards beyond the waterline, the area of St. Thomas itself is fairly unattractive and it's fairly poor over there. And I was trying. Some people were asking me, like, what do you mean? Like, is it you feel like you're in Mexico? Do you feel, and it's, I don't know if I have a good example. It's just like it's everything's just kind of run down, and part of it's because it is a hurricane area. So, I think people don't spend a lot of time fixing things up real nice because it could potentially get wiped out, and there really is no hurricane insurance for the most part. Most people are self-insured, so I think that's some of it. The land itself is just unattractive. It's just kind of like scrub brush and stuff too. Again, you put a bunch of trees up and they get sucked out of the ground by any number of hurricanes. Then what good does it do? But there are, like Madonna lives on the island. There are multi-million-dollar homes in some spots, but for the most part, it's just kind of an unattractive area. And the people there. So you remember the Virgin Islands? That is a U.S. territory. So they're U.S. citizens, but they don't vote, which is kind of interesting. They drive on the left side of the road, which I'll tell you right now is a hell of a. You have to remind. So I was the shotgun person. So my buddy Greg drove, and we kept it the same way. So he drove all the time. So you kind of get used to driving on the left. But there were a number of occasions.
Were you scared?
When I had to remind him left, left, left. Which is easy when you're driving in town because you just follow the car in front of you and they follow the turns. What happens is when you get kind of away from where everybody else is doing the same thing, and then you come into an area like it's a roundabout or there's traffic coming this way, and you're trying to remember, oh man, everything you're thinking, everything is, so you're looking at these cars and your brain is saying, dude, that ain't right. That guy's coming right at you, and you realize he's coming at you because you're on the wrong side of the road. So there was a couple times where I had to grab the wheel and help us move to the left relatively quickly. But he got it down after a few times. And so I'm going to say that probably having a few drinks and a cab is a much better idea than drive. But it's an interesting spot. And then you can go from like the St. John Island, which is you can take a little ferry over there, is very beautiful. There are some beautiful spots there. It is just not easy to get to. But real estate wise, it's pretty interesting because the real estate was not cheap. You would think out there. But I guess it does make sense if you're a New Yorker or Boston or anybody or even the Florida people, and you can get there within a couple hours.
Going to resort, yeah.
Yeah, the prices are up there pretty well. So, interesting spot. Don't know if I would go back to that island. And they just, I would say, the economy there kind of got hurt. So where we stood, the cruise ships were just rolling in and out. Just rolling it. And that is an industry to this day that just blows me away, is the cruise industry. It's like, who are all of these flipping people get in? You're talking about charging by the pound. If you charge by the pound on a cruise ship, you'd be a gazillionaire. But these ships are rolling in, and they're just full of people. I'm like, who are all these people on these cruises? And they're just coming and coming and coming and coming. And that's just one spot of one day. You think about all the cruise ships that are out there. It is amazing. So that kind of keeps it alive a little bit, but there isn't much else to do there. And it's funny because the people that we ran into that were working there were not, for the most part, were not locals. They're people that were transplanted. Ran into a few Californians that were, ended up there 5 or 6 years ago and never left. So it is kind of one of those places like you. So now I'm way off topic, but you you're sitting there at a bar, and you see this, bartender, and I look at her and I say, probably 15 years ago she was like really hot, but she's still dressing the same way she did when she was 19, but now she's 34 and she doesn't realize it. And I think it's one of those areas that kind of sucks you in. You just kind of get used to that lifestyle and the warm air, and you're just kind of doing your own thing. And next thing you know, you look up and you're 40. You're like, damn, I'm still wearing the same hairstyle, and I haven't done anything. And there's a lot of that over there. Just
kind of stuck in time a little bit.
Yeah, it's like I came over here. This was super cool when I was 19, and I thought I'd work at the bar for a couple years and hang out. And then next thing you know, I never left. And so that is that and the jewelry sales. God, they're sell jewelry to you for everywhere over there. It's amazing. So
I like your new gold chain there, Jeff. That's sweet.
I got myself my Jay-Z bling there, a big one. And then we came back through Florida again. And I got to say that I could. Now, I've never been in Florida in what I would call an uncomfortable period, and I mean weather-wise. So I'm guessing that I've hit it at certain times when the weather's been great, nice cool breeze, and it's kind of a little overcast. I'm guessing it gets fairly humid. Florida is basically a swamp. But for those of you that are boaters or just kind of like that lifestyle around the water in the boat, I mean, Florida is, I see the attraction for sure. And I'd never been to Miami before. So I went down and saw, is it American Airlines that were, the Heat play, American Airlines Arena. And I think about Sacramento, and I think of all the things that that we could be, and I'm talking about things related around the water. And you go to, so here you have the basketball arena, then you have the shopping center that kind of outdoor shopping that kind of half circles around, and there's all these bars and nightclubs and the Hard Rock, and it all surrounds this big boating marina, if you will.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, and I think why we could, first of all, where I-5 is in Sacramento has just decimated our ability to do anything. I-5 is in the wrong spot. But if you could do, I mean, can you imagine an arena, a Sacramento arena that was set up against the river, up high, all glass, looked out over the water, shopping, not like Old Town shopping, but things and bars and all the things going on, and people pulling their boats in, and just had just everything based on the water. It would be so phenomenal that you see it everywhere else. I mean, hell, in San Antonio, they don't even have water. They made a river.
Right, they made it, exactly.
They got a fake river that they have shops on that we don't.
And it's cool.
It is extremely cool. Extremely cool. And yet we have rivers, a couple real nice ones that we don't take advantage of. And I don't know, maybe it's too late. I mean, maybe you can't. Yes, I know they're subject to flooding and other things too, but I look around at places like that place there in Miami, and I think, we could have that. We could, if we wanted to. And it just takes a little bit of planning. We could do it on the West Sac side. If we wanted, all kinds of room over there. There's no I-5 on the West Sac side. Anyway, that was my summary of my trip. I do note this. Excuse me. I do now understand why Florida has the number one foreclosure and the biggest real estate collapse ever. If you get on the East Coast, it doesn't matter where, it is nothing for miles but condo. Big tall ones, little short ones. If you're dying coughing ones. And I thought, who is buying all these condos?
So just too much supply?
Dude, I don't know who lives in these things. It's just the entire, and I was only in a small section. The entire state is a big condo, high rise, low rise, whatever. And I'm thinking, who are all these people that are living in these condos? And then you go back and look and you see where the meltdown was in terms of prices. Yeah,
they're probably all investments and people coming down for summers, and
prices got pushed up, and there is no way to support that many condos. So I mean, right. I didn't get in and look at all the pricing, but it's still got to be a hell of a good deal if you wanted a condo that overlooks the water, because they're everywhere. I mean, just everywhere. And I did mention this on the Talkin Money Facebook page when I was there. There is no state tax in Florida. And their roads are killer. Our roads stink, and we're being over. And I don't know the mechanism for where they get their money. Their real estate taxes are higher than ours for sure, but I don't know where are they getting the cash. I mean, their roads are like glass. I mean, they're just perfect. And where's the money coming from? I don't know. It can't just be, real estate taxes. I don't know, but we could learn something Our area could learn something from the way they develop around the water. We could learn something about using our tax money better from some of these other states. So that's what I always find interesting about traveling, because I never traveled as a kid at all. Is you get around and you look and you see, wow, what can be, if you want it to be. So we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some real estate REITs. Would you be better off to own a rental house, or would you rather own some shares in a REIT than own rental houses? Which is easier? We'll talk about some of those things, some changes coming up for Fannie and Freddie, and we'll take your calls and questions too if you want to jump in today. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. My tuberculosis is going just fine, 530. Thank you. It'll clear up. I was in a foreign country. I could have got something. You got a quiz question or no?
Yeah, real quick, since we're talking East Coast, Rocky 2, the movie, the townhouse that Rocky 2 was filmed in, what is the purchase price going? It's currently for sale. At what purchase price?
Is this the one like he was like doing the bar dips in that little townhouse?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's for sale?
Drinking eggs and raw eggs.
Eggs included. So they're asking, how big is the place real quick?
It is a three-bedroom townhouse, 90 years old.
That's the asking price for Rocky's townhouse. This is Talkin' Money. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back.
Talkin' money.
And we're back. It's Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell.
Got my smoker's cough under control there. I don't even smoke.
Lung butter.
Lung butter is right. 339-1140. 1-800-920-1140 if you want to jump in. There is no such thing as a stupid question, just John's reply, which I'll mock him for you if you want to do that. I did see this out of the USA Today as I was hitting at the Chili's there in Roseville. Always a good place for education. And
Chili's, donut shop. Where else you been lately?
Everywhere. I've been working on trying to make sure that I pay the most possible fee when I fly on Samoan Airlines.
Attaboy.
I want to get up to $1,000 flight. Lenders loosen up on home loans. As the housing market rebounds, low down payments are back. This is from Wednesday's article, and I thought,
really?
Who wrote this? Not somebody who's in. First of all, low down payments are back. We have had, FHA 3.5% down, conventional 5% down, now conventional 97, so 3% down. We've had these for a long time. VA is 0, USDA is 0. These aren't new programs, and I wouldn't say that lenders are loosening up on home loans either. So I'm not sure what the article says. Lenders are warming up to home shoppers lacking big down payments. I see quite the opposite. And I wouldn't say things are getting any tighter. They probably couldn't get any tighter than they were. But certainly, I see more people moving away from, particularly FHA, the 3.5% down, and moving more toward a conventional, trying to get to the 5% down. The reason being is there's some big changes that happened, that have happened and will be happening in FHA, and FHA wants that. So don't pretend like this is an unintended consequence. FHA did this on purpose. They didn't want to be the number one lending source in the world, and they were getting there quickly. They didn't want to be a subprime lender only. And they didn't want to be bankrupt in terms of they needed some more funds. So what FHA has done is increase their costs, which is the mortgage insurance. They increase the upfront mortgage insurance, which is kind of the one-time premium, which they do finance for you. So it's not quite as noticeable. What is noticeable is the monthly portion of it. It's basically gone over the last couple of years from 0.5% to 1.3. So it's close to being triple. What it was on a monthly basis, and that's by design. It's by design to generate more funds into the program. It's also by design to have people think about it twice whether they really want to go there. The biggest change is coming up in June. Is it June 1st or first week of June?
3rd.
Yeah, the biggest change, and this is the one I think that's pushing people out of the program who would be new to it. Now, this wouldn't apply to you if you already had an FHA loan, so don't confuse yourself. But FHA is going to, starting basically in another 45 days, all their new loans are going to be permanent lifetime mortgage insurance. So think about that for a minute. If you put put down 3.5% down, and you're making your payments over the years, and the market's appreciating a little bit, there is a point in time where eventually you will have 20% or more equity in your home, and that's good. And normally at that period of time, you could send an appraisal into your lender and say, I'd like the mortgage insurance released, please, because now your risk has been diminished, and I have 20% equity or 22, whatever they require, enough. And that portion of your payment would drop off, and that could be $100 to $300, depending, or more, depending on what type of loan how big your loan amount is. But going forward now in June, you will not have that option anymore with FHA. You will always have the monthly mortgage insurance unless you refinance, or obviously if you sell. So that little tweak has gotten around. The realtors understand it. The lenders understand it. The borrowers are starting to understand it. And it's making people look around and say, is the FHA program for me? And so, when you're only talking about maybe there is some conventional 97% financing, so there's something very close to it. But even most people will go to the 95, they'll put down 5%. So they're looking at it saying, can I really dig another, point and a half out of my pockets? And because of it, my mortgage insurance I'll be able to get rid of it. And oh, by the way, the monthly mortgage insurance is about half, and there is no upfront mortgage insurance. So as a package, it's considerably cheaper to go conventional. This is also having some influence on interest rates and the lenders, because the market, the people who ultimately buy mortgages from companies like me and others, they put a premium on buying a government loan, a VA, USDA, FHA, those three in particular, because they have a guarantee from the government. They have an insurance. They're considered to be a little more safe in terms of getting your money back. And so the market pays a premium for those, which has helped keep the rates on those down because there's such a high demand for them. Well, as those start to go away, and what you're left with is more and more conventional financing. So think about this for a minute, like any business. I'm selling at Ace Hardware. I sell some 2-cent screws, and I sell some $150 objects, and I sell $1,000 mower. So I make some big profits on some things, and I expect that John will come in one day and he'll spend $15, and the next day he'll come back, he'll spend $150. So I'll get a good mix of income from him. I couldn't stay in business just selling 2-cent screws, And so what happens is the mortgage industry is very similar. As it starts to see its income decline from the government loans because they don't get paid as much for them, they've been the conventional loans have been a little bit of a loss leader. And I don't mean that they're losing money, but they don't make us quite as much money on them. So we're starting to see in the industry the people are looking around going, oh, wait a minute here. We had planned on 40% of our business being FHA and 5% being VA and 55% being from conventional, and now we're be like 75% conventional. So don't be shocked if that doesn't have a trickle-down effect in the market and you start to see conventional rates come up a little bit, because the market is going to demand that they have a little bit of a premium on them because they're not quite the same widget. They don't have, their private mortgage insurance is good, but there's a lot of private mortgage insurance companies that bailed. The last meltdown, a lot of them went with it. And so you're sitting here holding your, think about your insurance certificate. I crashed my car today. Now, I got State Farm. Okay, State Farm's probably pretty good. They'll probably pay me. I got JFOD Insurance. He's been collecting my damn premium every month, and he's got that gold tooth in. He looks pretty good. But the minute I crash my car, I can't find John anymore. And that's what happened with a lot of the private mortgage insurance companies. They were just gone because they got wiped out. So they didn't pay their bills. So even though you quote unquote have mortgage insurance, if there's nobody there to pay the bill, then the lender doesn't get their money back. So there is a premium that goes along with having a government-backed loan. And so it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I'm starting to see it. And you see it in different companies. They're looking around going, man, we're not selling as many of the gold widgets as we used to. We're selling more silver. And so that's gonna have a change. It's gonna have a ripple effect all the way down the line. So people always ask me then, okay, why would I go FHA then, Jeff? Geez, you just said it's 1.75% of my loan amount. So take a $200,000 loan. There's $3,500 I got to pay up front, which you guys, which FHA finances for me, but I still paid it. and then I got to pay $220 a month or whatever in mortgage insurance. Why would I do that? Why would I go FHA?
Because you need to.
And why do I need to?
Because you had a foreclosure, a bankruptcy 3 years ago, because your debt ratios are high.
Maybe you had a cosigner.
You had a cosigner, non-occupant. Your credit scores are maybe 642.
Yeah, all gift maybe.
All gift, no money of your own.
Yeah, so there are some things that FHA does. And what's funny is that by saying we don't want to become the subprime lender of choice, FHA by default is becoming the subprime lender of choice, because those who can, by raising the costs and by raising the fees and by removing the ability to get rid of the PMI, those who are the better quality, I'm not going to use the word first-time buyers because they're not first-time buyers in a lot of cases, but the better quality buyers with low down payment look around and say, I'll go conventional. Screw it. I'll get 5%. I don't care. I'll come up with my own money. Whatever I got to do. They have the better credit scores. They have the lower debt ratios. They have their own money, and so they leave the program, or I should say, they never even enter the program. And what you're left with are the people who have to go FHA, which in many cases are, like John said, people who are just 2 years out of a bankruptcy, lower credit scores, needed my mom to co-sign with me. I needed John's gift because he's my brother. They're I don't want to use they're weaker, but they're a different candidate. Mm-hmm. And they get all funneled into FHA. So FHA is going to end up by default with not an even pool of borrowers. So, and
in our area, what we've seen though is that from the realtor standpoint, it's like this stigma came back again.
I know it.
Everybody, all we did was FHA loans for the last year and a half, 2 years, and now all of a sudden, no one wants to see an FHA offer again.
I know.
They just don't want to see it.
And there's no reasonable logic behind that, other than the fact that if you're the seller and I'm selling you my house, and you and Chris and 5 other guys all walk up in front of me, and Chris has got all cash, and you got conventional with 10% down, and somebody else walks up with FHA, I'm going to perceive that to be a weaker offer or a weaker borrower, or if nothing else, maybe a more lengthy period of time, which it really isn't.
Right.
And there's a perception that FHA, sends in some guy who disassembles your house, inspects every crack and reassembles it back together, kind of like these guys did sifting through the bomb, like forensic technique. That's not what happens.
Right.
The appraiser comes out with 2 forms. Appraiser comes out with their briefcase and says, "Hey, John, which form am I using?" "Oh, you're using the FHA form." Okay, they whip out the FHA appraisal and they stick their head in the attic. And, if the house is a piece of crap, the appraiser is going to note it's a piece of crap regardless of what form they put it on.
Right.
But you're right. It's the FHA borrowers are getting discriminated against. No question about it. No question about it. And the realtors, in doing the best for their clients, will ask, "Is there any way we can get this guy or this person into a conventional financing because it'll make their offer look better?" Chris is all cash guy, but Chris is offering 180, and John's doing some financing. He'll offer the 210 if it appraises, and so that's why a seller I would hang out and wait for John's offer, because I'm going to pick up some more cash than from Chris. But
yeah, I've been able to flip a couple this week from FHA that just had to go by just using some single premium buyouts, different things like that, and within very short time we're now in contract. So definitely a difference.
There you go.
Game changer.
We got to take one more break. You got any more quiz questions there? 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. You can text us if you'd like at 44-1140. I've got some River Cats baseball tickets. I've got some Round Table Artisan Flatbread Pizza if you want to go that route. And we'll be coming up with some Hangtown here pretty quick, but not today. I'll try to get those together by next weekend, because that race is coming up in 3 weeks. We're going to be busy. And then the boat races are coming up. We're working on that too. So we're going to be
busy, having fun.
Giving lots of stuff away here. So
lots of good stuff.
What do you got on your
talking
schedule
demographics. There? Demographics, birth rates, median age of populations. So some people, maybe not think about how important a median age of a population is in your country, but definitely has a big effect on
your
many things.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, the median age, which country has the highest median age of population?
And how old is that?
That would be 45.3 years old. 45 is at the top median age.
So
which country?
And they also don't they have a negative birth rate?
They do.
Wow. So that's the so people say, well, why would you use that as a quiz question? Because what happens is people get older, as a median age goes up, you stop spending less, because when you're 30 something, you're buying houses and cars, and when you're 60 something, you're probably at your last house maybe, and things slow down. But it's also the negative birth rate is really harmful for an economy. You have got to have two things. You got to have birth rate. You also got to have immigration. You have to have new people coming in, because they're the ones that are buying new things and making things happen. So you can extrapolate, if you want, to that country's economy down the road. You can say, okay, whatever the answer to John's question is, there, look at that economy and say, this is a country that's going to have some issues coming down the road real quick here. So the median age in this country is 45, you said?
45.
Okay, so 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. You can text us at 441140. Which country leads the list of both of them, highest median age and negative birth rate? And I don't know that I would have got that one.
No.
But I've never been there either, so I haven't seen it. You know the answer to that? Give us a call. Your choice. Some River Cats, some Artisan Flatbread Pizza. You know, we have we had a winner who, our co-host winner too. I got to look. We have our winner coming up, who was a winner of the co-host, the Facebook page co-host for a day. He's going to come in and sit in that seat right there.
Nice.
And we'll have to bring him some donuts and some juice or something too. That's coming up. I think we had to move that. We have to check into that also. So a lot of things going on.
Lots of activity.
And your questions, if you want to jump in today, feel free. 339-1140. This is Talkin' Money. He's John. I'm Jeff, and we're going to be right back.
Well, alrighty then. We're back to Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell.
Yeah. How you doing? 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. The country with the highest median age has not been answered yet. It is not China, Japan, or South Korea. I'll give you a hint that David Hasselhoff is probably one of the biggest fans there, if you know the answer to that. 339-1140.
Dude, where's your mind today?
Don't you know
David Hasselhoff, thongs.
He's huge there. He is huge. So we'll leave that out there if you know the answer to that question. I did see out of the USA Today that about a third of the counties in the United States have also had more deaths than birth. So is the United States on that list?
It is.
So what is our median age? And
we are at 37 years of age.
Okay, so we're younger than the top letter. What about the growth of population? The bar chart on the right there. Are we plus or minus?
We are plus 0.9.
So yeah, that's better than being negative, but that's probably not enough either. That's
not great.
No. So the birth rate in the United States has dropped a little bit too, but we'll let that hang out there a little bit too, and come back to that if you will. I did get a couple texts that we'll read here through, and of course a few that I cannot read. Hey, Jeff from the 916, how long before I can refinance to a lower rate if I refinanced using a HARP 1 loan a couple years ago? The answer, as it stands right now, is...
Do you have value in your home now or not?
Yeah. The answer you're looking for, the answer is you cannot refinance a HARP loan again as another HARP loan.
Correct.
And I bring this up because this is a great timing for a text. Any of you who bought your property certainly in 10, 11, 12 might be a little soon, but 10 and 11 in there, really need to take a look and see whether, if you are paying mortgage insurance right now, PMI, whether you bought FHA or conventional, if you're paying private mortgage insurance now, get online and look and see. Possibly and probably many of you have 20% equity now that you did not have when you bought the home.
Or call your realtor and have them run a value.
Yeah, I mean we have a program that'll run them. You can start out simply, go to Zillow or Redfin, one of those two. Just kind of take a look and see what the value of your home is. Is there 20% equity in it? Even if there's not a full 20%, you'll be shocked how many of you are probably at 85% loan to value. And if you're paying, an FHA premium that's $180 a month, you could probably get that down to right around $60 to $75. Plus, your rate could probably come down a little bit too. Because think about this for a minute. A lot of those contracts that were written, in 10 and 11, a lot of them were short sale contracts. So they were likely, the contract itself was likely drafted anywhere between 3 to 6 months before you actually closed escrow. So now you're talking about, 2 years ago you bought it, plus 6 months ago you put it in contract. So the price was set a long time ago. And what has happened, as you can see, you start taking, 13, 20% appreciation in our areas here over the last couple of years. And all of a sudden, you don't have the need for private mortgage insurance anymore.
Yeah, some areas, I've been talking to some appraisers too. I mean, the $110,000 house in West Sac, old areas, are now going for $200 plus. Some of the houses bought, like Jeff is saying, on short sale that were bought right are way up there. I mean, the median price went, what was the number we saw? Yeah, 165 to 215 now?
Yeah, well, 8.1%. 12-month increase in the Case-Shiller 20 City Home Index. So that's nationwide, 8% per year. Our area has exceeded that by a long shot.
Every month.
Yeah. So, and the reason I bring this up is that, you figure, well, I only put down, 3 or 5%, and yeah, I've paid a couple $1,000s down on it, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just the market, the swell picking you up and moving you out of the mortgage insurance. And but if you are still upside down, and our texter texted again and said, I'm still upside down by about $100,000, and it is Fannie Mae. Yeah, the HARP 2 program, once you do HARP, you've done it. I mean, under the current rules, there is some thought that maybe there will be a HARP 3, and one of the criteria may be that, if you did it before, you can do it again as long as you can show that you're getting benefited by it. But as it stands right now, you still have to, you got to stick with what you've got. If you've done a HARP refinance, then you've one and done, unfortunately. And a lot of those people did them when they were like at 5.5.
But hang in there and watch values over the next 2, 3, 6 months.
Yep, because you're probably going to get picked up here pretty quick. Let's get to Tim's been holding. Tim in Meadow Vista, what's happening?
Not much. How you guys doing today?
Very good.
Good. Hey, I got a mutual fund that was I transferred a 401k when I quit a job about 20 years ago. And in 2008, I took a big hit. I lost about 50% of the profit in it, or the money in it, I should say. But it's come back, and I got about 10% plus what I lost as we sit today. So my question is, it's in a moderate growth part of the fund. Should I let it just sit for a while, or should I pull it and put some into a slow growth? I'm just really afraid the market's just going so gangbusters again. I'm afraid it's going to do a correction, and I'm going to lose money again.
Yes, so you've ridden the wave back up, and now you feel like maybe it's time to get off the surfboard and get back on the beach, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that is a and Tim, as you probably know if you listen to the show, I am not a financial planner. That's not what I do on a daily basis, but certainly, in and around it enough. Who manages your fund for you now? Do you have it just with a kind of a generic fund, or do you have an actual manager that you could talk to?
It's a Vanguard fund.
Okay, so you kind of do it on your own type of program. I would. Yeah. Regardless of what, if you consider it a substantial amount of money, and substantial is different to everybody else, I would look at trying to track down maybe a financial advisor at this point and say, and getting a plan of, is it all in one fund, or is that fund, diversified out, and should I be pulling some off the table and put it over here? I'm looking at some of these options. There's, I brought this up earlier. Tim, I'm going to put you back on hold, and you can listen to that while we're doing this. So here's an option of Wall Street rolling out investment funds that make owning single-family homes as easy as buying a stock. Now, if you recall, in our area, I have lamented about BlackRock and some other investment funds that have come in here and bought hundreds and hundreds of our homes. And while that was great when the market stunk and it kept them off the market from further deteriorating, right now it's killing us on a buyer basis. But this is a fund now that's put together, and you can start investing in these funds. They may own thousands of rental houses. And not only do you get the income coming in from the rental house, but you also get the appreciation if and when they decide to sell. So that is another option, and looking around and saying, if Tim believes that, okay, I don't see how the stock market can continue going the way it's been going. And I would not disagree with that thought. I mean, I ask myself daily, what is it that's pushing this along? I don't see it, other than kind of this overhyped enthusiasm a little bit. But I'm not sure. I just don't see what's behind it anyway. But I don't study it. I mean, that's not my expertise. But you could pull some of those monies off the table, and maybe you say, okay, time for me to get into some real estate. Do I want to go out and buy one single family rental house? Speaking from experience, that's a pain in the ass. But there are people that do it, and I do.
And are very successful with it.
And they make a lot of money, and they like the feeling of having, you know what, that's my house, regardless, my tenant's a pain in the ass, the place, you know, whatever's going on, that's my place. I can see it, I can touch it, and, you know, I don't necessarily have to own it outright, but I can put some money down. Now, that's harder to do through, if not almost impossible to do, through a 401k type of fund. You just can't do that. The only way you can really buy property through your retirement funds is you have to do it through a company called Polycomp in town. There are administrators that do that for you, but you also have to buy them outright. You cannot finance, and you can't be a partner with yourself. You can't say, okay, I'm going to put my 401k is going to put down the 10% down. I'm going to put down 10% down, and we're going to own it, together. You can't do that. It has to be owned outright. So it's difficult. But if you like that concept of owning, investment income or investment properties, but you don't want to own a single family house, you want to diversify, if you will. These REITs are coming out of the ground right now, and BlackRock's a good example of a company that does that, and other places that are doing it as well. There's also another one that actually popped up this week. The federal government's really worried about this. They're worried about it causing another meltdown. This time they're on the front side of it. There are some REITs that have popped up. Annaly is a good example of one. These are mortgage REITs. And what they do, because you can borrow money these days for next to nothing. I mean, there's just no interest rate. So you go out and borrow money. Let's say you borrowed it. If you're borrowing big volumes of money, maybe 1% or 1.5%, you're borrowing super cheap money, and you're going out and you're buying mortgages that are paying 4%. And they're making this spread off the two. And so that's good because investors are making almost 15% on these if they're being reported accurately. What the regulators are worried about is that this is another bubble. That the minute rates start to rise, then we're going to have all this money in here that's now losing money, and it's taking up hundreds of millions of dollars. It's taking it off the market and putting these accounts. And so they already have already looked up and said, we don't want don't cause another real estate bubble again. This one would be in a different end of it. But there's lots of people that could be, that could lose money on these things if something turns, where the rates all of a sudden go up and you can't borrow and you can't get your money back out of them. They don't want to cause another issue. I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in these because they're great.
Interesting.
But they already have caused some issues or some warning signs from the REITs. But that is a way to do that. I suggest to all of you, if you have money, if you've pulled money out of a company you left, and you've got a 401k, you've got a nest egg, an amount of money that's important to you, and you look at that money in that pile of money and you say, I need this. This is important for me to live off of. I got to build this, or I got to save this, whatever you got to do. You can try to do it yourself. And people are very successful that have done that. The cost of getting competent, qualified financial planning is invaluable. I consider this on the same level of getting an attorney if you're being sued. Getting a realtor if you're trying to sell your property. The cost at the end of the day will be negligible, if anything, on a net basis. Most of your realtors probably get more for the house than you would. So look into an advisor, get their advice, and come up with a plan, and stick to it. Review it, stick to it, and go with it. So, but there are the mortgage REITs are coming out for single families. You used to see them all the time for just commercial properties. That was very common, but single family residential, not so common, but it is now. So, and I would suggest that's probably a heck of a lot easier way to dip your toe in the water if you want to check that out. We'll come into this next week, but I looked up the scant foreclosure relief, all the money that's gone into foreclosure relief over the years. The $937 million or some $1 billion. It's how much is it going to trickle down to each individual? On average, about $80. $80.
Write the check.
Out of all the money that was $9.3 billion trickles down, and the average person will get probably maybe $500 if you were fall into a certain category and you can track it down. So most of the money didn't go into actual cash. It went into other sorts of relief, which are a little harder to track. But we'll talk about that next week and some other things as well. You can find us during the week on our Talkin Money Facebook page. John Fodorero works at Comstock Mortgage, and you can find me there during the week, 338-9400, if you're looking for some financing or some questions. That's it for another Saturday. We'll check back with you next week. Glad to be back, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Johnny, and thanks for covering while I was gone.
Absolutely.
Be safe, enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, everybody. Aloha.